Again.
There you go. Thank you.
Right, perfect. Hello, everyone. Again, like Melissa mentioned, my name is Nitin. I'm the point of contact for North Carolina in the Middle East. Been working extensively in the region for about like 5 years, but been in the region for 25 plus years. So have the lay of the land and how things work in the region. My expertise lie between the healthcare, aerospace, defense sector. Did my master's in petroleum engineering as well. Gave me a bit more background on the energy sector as well. So happy to assist any NC companies that looking into expanding into the Middle East region. Uh, Give a shout out and then we'll try and help you out. Thing over to Rana.
Hi, everyone. Good morning or evening, depending on where you are at the moment. Welcome to our panel discussion. And adding to what Nitin said, I'm actually his colleague here in Dubai. I work in the capacity of foreign direct investment support and trade support to both economies at large and private companies. I also manage our in-house incubator here in Dubai, which is like a gateway into the Gulf region, where I try and support companies with their expansion into MENA and the wider GCC area. I will be speaking today about business in the UAE, some mega trends, and kind of update you on what's there and out and about for you when you're considering doing business here at the UAE. Over to you, Yazan.
Thank you, Rana. My name is Yazan Shukair. I'm the head of consulting at Arabian Enterprise Incubators. We are based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and we focus only on Saudi Arabia. My role is to help companies, small and large, who want to establish in the kingdom. I myself have been living in Saudi for the past 8 years. In fact, I grew up in Saudi, but I did leave for some time to pursue my studies. Today I'm going to talk to you about the transformation that's happening in Saudi. It was very interesting to see that on the ground happening over the last 5 to 8 years. And I hope this session will be useful to other North Carolina companies that are on this call. Over to Anfaz.
Hello, hi. Good evening, good morning. My name is Anfaz Ahmed. I'm based in Dubai. In fact, I work for a North Carolinian company called Glen Raven. I hope you might know about it. I'm working with the company for the last 6 years. I cover sales for the Gulf countries and East Africa. So as I told you, you might be knowing about working for a North Carolina company in Dubai. There are some challenges which you have to overcome. So I'm here to speak something about the challenges you face and what are the ways that you can overcome the challenges. A very brief note about the challenges, and in fact, I'm also happy to let you know that I'm working with EDPNC over a couple of years before. We have been working in partnership for some trade shows back in 2018 and 2019, and even in recently in 2022. It was a pleasure connecting with or organizing events with EDPNC. Thank you.
Thank you, Anfaz. I think we can jump over to Mr. Munir for a quick introduction.
Thank you, Nitin. I appreciate it. My name is Munir Koui. I am the principal and CEO of Health Analytica. We're based out of North Carolina. I've had over a couple of decades of experience in international business, which 15 of them were in healthcare. Very familiar with the Middle East region, as one of my primary contracts or business opportunities, as I mentioned earlier, were the Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi. We help companies out of the U.S. to expand, find their way out into global markets and vice versa as well. So oftentimes we also help overseas markets or overseas companies come into the U.S. Based on their market needs and targets.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Munir. I think we can get started with this call. Rana, would you like to jump in on give us an idea of like what doing business in the UAE look like?
Well, I'm sure to start off this conversation just about the UAE, and I'm sure all of you to some extent have been on the news when watching how the UAE, the Saudi Arabia as well, and the GCC as whole have been emerging and evolving over time and moving from a petrol and gas economy into more of a, more inclusive, holistic, circular economy, giving more chance or like a bigger chance for a variety of sectors to partake in this initiative. And there has been a special attention towards the green agenda right now from a variety of sectors where ESG topics and sustainability have been a hot topic. And for a country as young as the UAE, and maybe not half of us on the call are older than the UAE itself, since it was established in the 1971. I think it comes with a modern vision, and it's kind of a futuristic place that is always forward thinking, with a great leadership that talks the talks and walks the walks from experience. And it is inspiring to see how much attention it has been given to businesses to partake in those initiatives and creating that ecosystem that is enabling and engaging. And if you are to look it up just on Google and then look at how much support you would be getting from, regardless of which sector you come from, you would it is inspiring to see the ease of doing business here in the UAE, how easy it is for you to find an opportunity to engage with customers, to have a significant market share. I think the tax regimes over here also very competitive compared to other parts of the region. And it's kind of becoming like complementary to other parts of the region. So if you are to start here, it is so easy for you to start with here and grow into other areas. And I guess Yazan can jump in here and help me like illustrate better how the UAE feed into like having a business in the UAE feed into having business wins all across, including Saudi Arabia and other neighboring countries.
Thank you, Rana. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Saudi Arabia is a relatively young country, older than the UAE, founded in 1932. But Saudi Arabia wasn't necessarily out on the news too much. In fact, it's been known historically to be a conservative country, a closed-off country. And the government was satisfied with the income they were getting from the oil sales. And there was a boom in Saudi infrastructure over the 1970s and 80s as oil prices started picking up worldwide. Now, this continued up until 2015. And until that point, the UAE was particularly one of the best routes to market into the Saudi market for a lot of companies. Of course, similar culture, its proximity to Saudi Arabia, and the fact that Saudi was just so difficult to get into that you probably was left better to do it from a country like the UAE. The UAE has opened up a lot earlier than Saudi, simply because they saw a vision and they wanted to achieve that vision early on. Saudi Arabia never had such a vision up until 2016, when some of you may have heard about Vision 2030. It was quite a big news, and nobody really understood at that point how much of an impact would that have. But the key theme to that was that the country was willing to diversify away from oil, especially after the oil price crashed down in 2014. It was about the right time to do this. Now, Saudi has been ruled historically by the sons of King Abdulaziz, who is the founder of Saudi Arabia. There are about 45 sons to the king, out of which King Salman is the 25th, and he continues to rule the kingdom. But there will be a change in the next sort of appointment of the king in Saudi, where it's no longer going to go from brother to brother. It's moving from father to son. And this will be the first time this happens in the history of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
And maybe Anfaz Munir, since you've been here in the market for a long enough time, I would say, how do you think things have shifted, especially over the past 4 or 5 years? And what do you think is the way forward for you now in the market? And since both of you have business in the UAE, do you also think that Saudi Arabia is the next step for you, or have you already started doing business there? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Sorry. Is it me or no? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just stepped in.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, okay, all right. So as both of you have mentioned, I mean, it's actually an expansion of the market. When you look outside how the Middle East it's happening, everyone was more focused only on Dubai or UAE, but now there is a transition or expansion in terms of market. There is a lot of things coming up, like Yazin said, Vision 30 is a great vision of a lot of projects, a lot of happening in terms of culture. Since I'm working as a Middle East manager for the Gulf countries, I have an opportunity or exposure to look into the different countries in the region. And as Rana said in the beginning, establishing a business in Dubai, you will not have an access only for this country. You have an access to all the neighboring countries, which includes all GCC countries like the Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar. In addition to that, you will have also access to the North African countries like Egypt, Algeria. Even there are a lot of things happening back in Egypt. So if the companies are planning to have an expansion of business, and it's not just even if you're coming to this part of the world, it's not your expansion is not limited only to UAE or Saudi Arabia. It's gonna have a wider regional access, because Rana, as said in the beginning, accessibility, easiness, it's all very easy and very affordable, or it's very easy to adapt. So
No, certainly I could second that. So from a perspective of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the larger scale of the Middle East, it has gotten much easier to conduct business with the countries in the region. For one, the trade agreements between the U.S. and these countries have facilitated a lot of industries' accesses to the region. Now, with Saudi Arabia, what I've seen, particularly in healthcare myself, and this probably bleeds into other industries, is that the Vision 2030 has provided a substantial amount of dollars for investment in Saudi. So that is prime market where a lot of industries that I see in healthcare as well focusing on, because there's projects being there are project expansions and initiations all across the country, and particularly with the region of NEOM. And if you guys are not familiar with NEOM, I would take some time to research or look it up and to understand the scalability of the investments that are being put in place for the region and I guess it's in northeast Saudi Arabia. I think Yazan would probably be much better explaining that than myself. However, in a more local perspective as well, all of the GCC countries, they have a certain level of understanding from trade agreements as well. So technically, if you start doing business or conduct business with any kind of country, say Bahrain, Qatar right now, Kuwait, UAE, Oman, or Saudi Arabia, that facilitates access to other regions. And the half the battle would be finding the right partners in a region that will be able to push for your solutions in those regions. We all know, I mean, all of us have some sort of experience in international business. We know that having the right partnership and people in place that will push for your solutions to be visible and in front of the end users is usually a major aspect of success.
I would like just to to add to what Munir was saying. Now, it's important to understand that although GCC countries are great at opening routes into other GCC countries or other regional countries, one of the most common pitfalls we see with foreign companies is that they assume the UAE is exactly like Saudi, is exactly like Qatar, is exactly like Kuwait. It's important to understand that each of these countries is quite unique in terms of its culture, in terms of its society, and in terms of its economy. To give you a comparison, so Saudi Arabia is the largest country in the Middle East. We're talking about 2.2 million square meter in size, which is quite substantial if you compare it to other countries in the region. One other thing is that the way things have evolved in Saudi is totally different than the way things have evolved in the UAE. And if we're talking about the cultural differences, it's important to note that the population in Saudi is majority Saudi people, while the population in the UAE is likely to be majority expats. That's, of course, something that you need to consider when you want to sell your product into each of these markets, because ideally you want to understand your target customers. You want to understand this demographic before you actually start doing business in that country. Would you
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you've got in the UAE over 200 nationalities called displaced home. And 200 nationalities, and with a population of over 10 million, 90% of which are expats, this can be both an opportunity and a threat, depending on your business. I mean, to come think about it, this creates many niche businesses for you to sell to and to find market into these existing customers here. But it also finding that generic appeal when you want to sell one product fit all kind of based on that demographic. In UAE, it can be also challenging to appeal to all of them, given the uniqueness of each of these nationalities, their customs, their holidays are different. What appeals to one might not appeal to the other. But and that is totally different than the landscape in Saudi Arabia, where things are probably more authentic. There is more of a generic theme and feel to the people that do live there, and even it goes down to labeling and packaging and how important language is, because in UAE it's if you don't know English, you're pretty much screwed. You can't. I mean, everywhere you go, you need to speak English, from the barista at Starbucks down to every government officials official room that you enter. There will be an English speaker. You go to Saudi Arabia, you don't know Arabic. That's a problem. That's another problem. So you need to just get accustomed and kind of know how to, like, your way around all of these in order for you to do business and to do it well. And to also market here and there can be different. And that's just two countries out of the whole GCC union, I would say. So Qatar can be more conservative in the sense, and more have a similar nature to Saudi Arabia compared to the UAE, while Bahrain might be more of more similar in that context to the UAE itself. So it is important before you plan your next go into market, dive in to speak with people like us and other consultants that can probably give you an overview of how and when and where to go to in each market. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Without a doubt, if I may add, like it's a typical scenario of knowing your audience. You could walk into a meeting in the UAE, and the people or the partners, clients, whomever you're meeting with, they could be an array of nationalities, from French, Indian, Swedish, Danish, Australian, and they're all sitting in one room, as opposed to you go to Saudi Arabia, see most of the people that you're going to meet with in one room, they're probably locals or Saudis. So you're gonna have, I mean, it's important to understand that learning how to switch gears on a whim is paramount. Now, this is not to discourage you from conducting business in the region, because it's been done before and it's very possible. I mean, it's more of an understanding of what you're looking at as some sort of challenges that need to be overcome.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put a poll question up. Let's get an idea of interest from those on the call. Can everybody see the poll question?
Yeah.
You can see it. Okay, I'm just going to leave it up for just a quick moment here. So make sure that you hit submit, I think. So after you choose the response, then hit submit. I'm going to go ahead and end it. I think that was more than enough time. Okay, well, I guess that didn't work. It didn't work, correct?
It did.
Yeah, I did.
I'm not sure everyone was able to. Maybe we can rerun it.
Yeah, no.
'Cause-
Yeah. And if not, do you know what I think I will actually do? I'm going to put Lisa Bamford on the spot. Can you either via chat, Lisa, or in conversation, let us know 1 or 2 points that you were hoping to get out of this call, and we can initiate a little bit of dialogue so our experts can be speaking to things most pertinent to those on the call. Okay, I see access to market. Stephanie, thank you so much for chiming in. So why don't we start with Stephanie's comment? And just from the very start, so if our experts can imagine themselves as never having exported to these markets before, what would you recommend as the first steps for the companies on the line?
Okay, I think I'll just lay the background and Rana and Yazan can take it forward. Usually access to market, I mean, we have like a really good resource of EDPNC over here. So you can obviously start there and start a conversation with one of a consultant at EDPNC and the target market. That is one. But then beyond that, there are 2 methods of like entering a market. It's either have a presence in the region by setting up your office, or partnering with a company in the region, be it a distributor, a client, where they have the right registration locally to promote your product. So, I mean, that is a very basic outlook. Rana, Yazan, maybe we can start with UAE. Rana?
Yeah, I mean, adding to these before you dive in head first to a market, I would say, as Nathan recommended, you can speak with a consultant and then test the waters with the market through attending certain events. Trade shows are a great example and gateway for you to kind of see or test the appetite towards your product and service and market. And then if you see there is a viable interest every time you attend these trade shows, then you can have a second conversation and probably taking your product or service through an agent or a distributor in market. And then if you see a growing demand, then you can think about having a base here where you set up a business development office or like set up the whole operations. It really depends on which sector you come from. And for that to happen, then that's a whole separate conversation where you can either choose to do it on mainland, offshore, or through a free zone. And each one of these options could be right for you, and they're all unique in the sense, and they could be all right, but depends on the specifics of your business and sector. One might be better than the other, and having the market feasibility analysis beforehand in order to assess the market opportunity for you and which option might be best is an essential step, and would save you, I would say, like tons of dollars that you might waste on going with the wrong option. So that would be my recommendation. Yazan.
Yeah, I completely agree on the routes to market. Typically, it would be through a partner or through your own 100% foreign-owned business, whether it be in KSA or in the UAE. One important thing I want to highlight, which is quite unique, I think, to Saudi, is that Saudi people like creating personal relationships with their business partners. We talked about the old model of people using the UAE to remotely access the Saudi market. And Saudi has caught up to that, especially after Vision 2030, when they've relaxed the rules around foreign investment and they've relaxed the rules around visas. So it is possible for 50 nationalities to obtain visa on arrival, just like in the UAE when you come to visit Saudi. So they're now saying, what's your excuse to not being physically in Saudi? Part of that consists of building local relationships. There's a big expat community here, and they tend to help each other. So you'll find that embassies look after their companies in Saudi. There are a lot of consultants that you can talk to, and a lot of those consultants do have existing relationships that they can leverage to help you generate business in the country. Now, if you have a strong partner in KSA, that is probably the best way to grow your business, because your partner will act as your representative and will go out and seek business. But that, unfortunately, is rarely the case. We see a lot of, and specifically talking about Saudi here, we see a lot of partnerships maybe work for a year or two, but then go into divorce. And typically that's because when people change a lot within organizations in Saudi, so you'll find that you may be working with someone who's a year later might resign and someone else takes his job and he's not doing as a good job as the previous person used to do. And sometimes it's just issues around payment or scale or not achieving the agreed milestones. So we see a lot of these disputes happening. And as Rana said, it can be difficult to go through such a divorce. So don't rush into any partnership. Always try to come to Saudi to meet your partner and to see their operation for themselves. Because we see cases where it's a one-man show company, a Saudi national who's running the company maybe with an assistant, and he claims 20 brands under his portfolio, and he's just simply got no enough time to pursue all of them. You know, he expects the supplier to do a lot of the legwork, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the promotion. But if you come and see your partner's operations for yourself, you can have the confidence that these are the right people for you. And you can start to develop a strong and a long-term relationship with that partner.
I'm just going to chime in just to remind the callers that the free international consulting service via offices such as Nitin and Rana's office, you know, if you talk to us specifically about a challenge and a goal that goes even beyond just a basic market intelligence research that we offer, or an initial list of potential distributors or agents, which we offer. So that's always your starting point, is contact your trade manager at EDPNC to initiate those conversations. But feel free to come to the table with a much more specific goal in mind. So our representatives here on the call can maybe walk us through what that would look like. So Nitin, for example, I see that Lisa mentioned she's with a small company. They don't have an opportunity as much to come and have those in-person moments that are so critical in some of these cultures. So her question is, you know, as a small business that doesn't have as many of those opportunities, you know, are there any suggestions on how they can generate those connections and facilitate growth with that gap? You know, what type of guidance, really nurturing potential partners in your markets can be done for the very small companies that we're working with? Welcome comments on that.
I think I'll get started. So we do have like a program in place for companies that are not present here in the UAE. We have a virtual B2B program where we help companies with opening doors, connecting companies with the right partner or the distributor to have conversations with and get that initial push to learn the market, or even like Rana mentioned, open a partnership with one of the companies in the region. So I think that would be one of the steps you would like to pursue to see if you're able to build leads through our virtual B2B program.
Yeah, and as a additional step to what Nathan has mentioned, you know almost never have to do it alone. I think we also have an incubator program where it's as I've mentioned before, it's like kind of a gateway into the Gulf region where you test the market. You don't have a full-on representation in the UAE by yourself. You kind of have a second layer of protection that kind of guide your success and route into marketing and onboarding on here. And I can tell you offline, even after the call, more on how that looks like, what kind of support you get through this. But also, I think part of the assessments that we run when we engage with companies is that sometimes expanding or considering the MENA region isn't the best step or isn't right for all companies. So I think it is important to reiterate on transparency and having a genuine discussion with the consultant where a genuine assessment does happen. Are you fit for growth? Do you have the right capacity, the right talent? Is your product from just like a basic initial assessment, does have a market in the UAE or in the region or not? Because after that kind of a fit for growth assessment, I would say you would be able to sometimes look at other regions, or our recommendation might be, no, the next step for you is Europe, then maybe MENA, or maybe Levant or other areas, but in the MENA region, but not necessarily GCC. And we tend to be quite honest in these discussions, because especially with the smaller companies, because the opportunity cost for you is really high.
Great. I'm going to segue to a couple of other questions that we had. Let's see here. So I'm going back. So Scott had a question specific to his interest in establishing in an FTZ in the UAE. And then the follow-on question to that FTZ question was how to vet the tax situation and gather information on international banking in that particular situation, I believe. Is that I chime in, Scott, if I'm combining the two that shouldn't be combined?
No, it's fine. I'm to answer the question, Scott, specifically on the UAE. In short, international banking and the tax regime in here compared to the US or the UK is definitely heavenly in that sense, and much easier and simpler. But there are some important things to keep in mind. It's still there are some new regulations around economic substance, wage protection systems, UBOs, and other regulations that you need to keep in mind whenever you're starting to open or consider having an international bank account. Not to mention that there is a new corporate tax emerging in the UAE effective this month, actually. So that have a strong implication. And I think if you would have asked me a month ago on having an FTZ or establishing within a free zone and how beneficial it is for you to be established in the free zone, being exempt from all taxes compared to now, it's absolutely different. And I think I can send you a few links that will help you navigate through the new corporate tax regulations and how does it affect you if you are to be established on mainland versus a free zone. And yeah, so it's just a longer discussion, but in short, the landscape on tax regime have changed, but it's still quite competitive compared to other countries. And globally speaking, it's like UAE, I guess, ranks 11th globally on how competitive it is when it comes to tax and ease of doing business. Yeah.
Oh, nice fact. Thank you. Then Michelle has a question. When first establishing partnerships and customer supplier relationships, are there particular pay term methods that are prevalent in these regions so both parties get comfortable? Letters of credit, cash against documents, cash in advance, open account, or other. So she's looking kind of for the business culture trends with respect to that particular topic.
I got some familiarity with that particular approach. So first of all, I mean, to vet your partner, you could use Duns and Bradstreet, look up their financial solvency. Also Experian International, which is they've gotten much better over the years in looking up or vetting the credit score or record of a certain partner. Generally, for the Middle East, payment terms and net 30 or a 50% upfront is usually applicable. If you feel comfortable and relaxed with your partner over the years, you can probably increase that if there are larger orders. Letters of credit do help as well. However, from what I've seen is the ones that I've dealt with in the UAE and Saudi, a net 30 structure has worked fairly well. As long as the companies are very well vetted in advance.
And just to add to that, so when it comes to Saudi, I think the biggest concern here is who is going to be eventually your main customer. If we're talking about the Saudi government, delayed payments continue to be an issue. And that money trickles down to the private sector and then eventually to the suppliers. So the supplier does not have an English equivalent. It is the
just like in the word. Everyone might want to check to make sure they're on mute. All right. If they're not speaking, obviously.
Yeah. First, it starts with the A sound, just like in the English word.
Can everyone just check that they're on mute in the background there?
So let's put it together.
I think it's probably Stephanie.
They are very for the same
Okay.
so learn some new words. Abe,
Okay, I will do that, and then I'm gonna unmute.
Right. So as I was saying, if your primary or if your end customer is going to be the government, there's a chance that you might face delayed payments because, as I said, that money trickles down from the government to the private sector and eventually to the offshore supplier. So a lot of the Asians who deal primarily with the government pay on paid basis. So they'll say to the supplier, we will pay you when we get paid. Now, we, of course, do not recommend this model. We always ask for upfront payments when possible, but it's not always possible if eventually your primary customer is going to be the government. And one thing to note is that a lot of the Saudi companies are uninsurable from a credit perspective. Hence, comes back to my point about doing the right due diligence early on, making sure that this company has a good payment history is essential when it comes to doing business in this region. And always start small and scale up from there. In fact, one of the strategies that we recommend, not just for Saudi, but for the MENA region, is a low-cost, low-risk strategy, at least in the beginning, if at all possible. So dip your toes in the market, test it out, see if it's the market for you. It's going to be tough when working in Saudi, particularly. It continues to be a challenging market, but it is a rewarding market in the end if you can give that commitment.
Great. And then there's a question, is there a fee for this particular service of introducing to distributors? So I think there's probably, thank you, Jenny, for that question. There's probably a dual response. So when I spoke about our organization's ability to link you directly to Nitin's team in the Dubai office, that is always free to North Carolina companies. However, they might end up through discussion proposing some type of more specific service. So this is actually a really good question, and I invite my EDPNC colleagues to chime in too on this. I haven't yet experienced servicing a North Carolina company that goes beyond what we offer for free, but I know that Rana, you were talking about the incubator option. So obviously that's not part of what we normally are working with. So anyone that's on the call that can offer commentary on kind of that segue between our free market intelligence, distributor, agent search. We also can provide you with regulatory labeling requirements for free through our relationship with Nitin's office that's located in Dubai. But going beyond that, I'll open up that for discussion.
Yeah, but I guess if you just want to sense check or ask just in more details about what we offer and that kind of support, or get just like a generic consultancy that would be absolutely free, you can just email us, and we'd be happy to have that first discussion with you on what the support might look like and what the best obvious option for you in market would be.
Right. So I assume it's a case-by-case situation, but it's important for everybody on the call to know that initially there's a lot of free services available. Start with the free services and gather as much information as you can as you assess if you need to dive in a little bit deeper and pay a consultant to kind of push you through to the next level. And Nitin has provided his contact information in the chat. So if everyone is interested, you could go ahead and put your email addresses in the chat as well, so that you have access to reach out to one another. And Munir is also in North Carolina for that. I'm going to open up the last few minutes so that each person on the panel and companies can have an opportunity for closing thoughts. Also keep in mind that we are going to be having our global roadshow, which is when the international trade team at EDPNC once a year will bring representatives from our foreign office to North Carolina to give you the opportunity to have one-on-one meetings with people in person to discuss these things. And Nitin is going to be in North Carolina next month for that. So please contact our international trade team to arrange your slot. And you should have an email with the information, but reach out to us for details. And then you can contact your trade manager at any time to schedule a virtual call as well. But I would like the opportunity for everyone to have closing thoughts. So Rana, would you like to get us started on that?
Yeah, just as I mentioned, the door is open for you to get in touch with myself or Nitin. I will also drop in the chat box my contact details. And as we mentioned, as much as we try to standardize these, they still remain on a case-by-case, like they're case specific, depending on your background, sector, your needs, and I would be more than happy to offer you my support. Yazan?
Again, thank you so much for the good words, Melissa. And again, I'm super excited to be in North Carolina next month. I encourage all of you to actually use the opportunity to contact your trade managers to set this meeting up so we can take things forward to help you grow in the Middle East. And again, sorry to cut off Yazan. Yazan, floor is yours. You're on mute.
Thank you, Nitin. Yeah, so I just want to share a few points from my side that I was meant to share on this earlier on this webinar, but I don't know how the time flew by. But yeah, one thing that you should understand, and it's to your advantage as a North Carolina company is that the USD is pegged to the Saudi SAR Riyal and is pegged to the dirham in the UAE. And that makes it a lot easier to do payments between those countries. The other thing, and probably unique to Saudi, is that emails and calls can only go to a certain extent. People here really like using WhatsApp. In fact, it's abused when it comes to doing business in this region. So you'll find that people would meet someone, would go into a meeting with someone, we'll send them an email next day like you typically do, and they would never hear back, and they would think that that person is rude or not, not wanting to speak to them again, but that's not the case. People just tend to not reply to emails in this part of the world and would rather have conversations over WhatsApp. You might find that if you call that person from an international number, he's not going to pick up either. And again, there's a big concern here about spam calls. People don't like picking up international calls. And hence why it's important that you build that personal relationship in the beginning, at least. One other important point, particularly about Saudi Arabia, is that 70% of the population, at least the Saudi population, is below the age of 35. So it's a very young population, and there is a big pressure from the government and on the government to employ those people. And it's been happening over the last 5 years. There's been a big push on the private sector to employ Saudi people in their businesses. So one thing to keep in mind when you are studying the demographic of this particular country. The other thing is that there are some sectors that are called priority sectors in the KSA. And those include the defense sector, the education and training, the healthcare, and more recently, entertainment and tourism. Now, there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to entertainment and tourism, because 5 years ago, those two sectors did not exist in Saudi. In fact, when cinemas were allowed in 2017, there was a 35-year ban on cinemas in the kingdom because they thought it went against their religious rules. But when they opened it up, we had 170 cinemas open up within 1 year. And yes, we're talking really big numbers. And that's the scale at a lot of these projects are going at the moment. It's not it's happening overnight, and it's happening at a very fast pace. Things are expanding very quickly. Tourism, there was only religious tourism in KSA. Now they're building their heritage sites. There are a lot of sites that you can come and visit and see. So don't think of this as just a business trip to Saudi. Think of it as an opportunity to learn the culture and to see the country for what it is. And thank you very much.
Anfaz, I'm sure that you have maybe some highlight points that you had in your mind. I want you to have the opportunity to let people know your thoughts, since you have such a unique perspective there.
Okay, as a person living in Dubai, working for a North Carolinian company, I would like to tell you everyone is that this region is really expanding in terms of business, because I'm working with Glen Raven for last 6 years. There was COVID in between, so there was some ups and downs, but I would say over the last 1 year, the growth is substantial. Like Yazin said, there are a lot of things happening back in Saudi and even in Dubai or in UAE. But when you look into the overall region, Saudi is really growing. There are a lot of projects. Like Monir said, there are projects. If you are, project especially for the tourism and the transportation, all these kind of sectors. So, for instance, like Monir said about NEOM, there is couple of other projects where it's more dedicated to tourism. So there's a lot of expansion happening, and I think the Vision 30 is one of the best overall Saudi future plan. So this is the right time to enter into the market. So like Yasin said, if you have an opportunity to come in, just come experience the things and understand how the business is working here, I think you will have a good good prospect customers. Once you build something good prospect customers, or some product where you can have a development, I think it's the right time to come here.
Thank you, Anfaz. Munir?
Sorry, I was on mute. So, I mean, look, I'll leave you guys with a couple of thoughts here based on what I've seen in the Middle East. consistency is very important. I think to really see value of your efforts, you have to be there. I'd say initially go figure out a couple of trade shows or events that are important to your industry. Visit the region, understand the lay of the land, do your own marketing assessment as well before you're hiring a consultant like myself or anybody else on the board here, just so you can get an idea for yourself of what it's like to conduct business in the Middle East. Another thing is that the Middle East is growing. It's growing economically, it's growing demographically, and that brings on more opportunities for you, for us, obviously, to conduct business in that region, and having the right people in place, whether it's consultancy partners on the ground, like OCO, for example, and Arabian Enterprise, that will help you walk through the folds, and also the right partners that you could sign on to promote your solutions, and those particular regions are paramount. So thank you very much for having me here, Melissa.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just also want to remind people that if you are in your pipeline planning to attend a trade show in the region, always reach out to your trade manager and to the Dubai office so that we can ensure that you're as prepared as you can possibly be by allowing our offices to help you do your preparation, help you do your research, to identify in advance some key targets for you to contact when you're at the trade show. It does not have to be a situation where you are co-exhibiting in one of our booths. Yes, we want you to engage in that situation, but keep us in mind when you are going to exhibit in your own booth, that we are here to support you in each and every endeavor such as that. And perhaps then you can utilize your trade show visits for opportunities to dig in a little bit deeper with the culture and schedule time before the trade show or after the trade show to stay on, to have these extended meetings, or just time to have meetings that would assist you in feeling more comfortable in that business environment. So that would be my suggestion, is work with our Dubai office to brainstorm on ways to gain confidence and comfort level in the market that even go beyond your trade show plans. So thank you, everyone, for your time today. We have recorded this. So for those where I know this is Thursday, we normally do this on a Friday morning. So perhaps some people got pulled into other things. We'll make sure that they have access to the recording so that they could reach out to our great resources. And thank you again for just supporting our organization and for being here. Have a great week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes, pleasure.
Glad to meet everybody.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
And if you can, yeah, and panelists, if you could put your email addresses in there, that way it'll be, you'll have the opportunity. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.